Or technically, I guess we buffer everything. That is, that the entire movie, in its entirety, is going to be downloaded to the device. It resides there. We do not stream anything off of the internet for a number of reasons, not the least of which is quality drops. Nothing like watching a movie that's streaming in 1080p and all of a sudden you notice that it gets a little bit fuzzy. That's because it dropped to 720, or it gets real fuzzy because it dropped all the way down to 480. That's what happens. Goes any further than that, you start to get nice little cubes and whatnot on the screen. Looks like you're in the middle of a Picasso painting, but that's the case. We want to avoid that happening. There are no quality drops because, again, we don't stream anything over the internet. It's not about internet speed necessarily. You could have 100 megabits coming into your house on average, but the fact is, when that thing farts and drops all the way down to 3 megabits for a 3 or 4 second period of time, it interrupts your viewing experience, and we are about the viewing experience. We want that to be the case. Also, full lossless multi-channel audio. I cannot stress this enough. Right now, the studios are spending 30 to 35% of their cinematic budget on the audio portion of what happens. They realize what an impact, especially emotional impact, it has on the audience, and that's what makes this work. We don't want people to lose out. You could have a beautiful picture, but if the audio isn't right, oh my gosh, how it ruins the experience. Just so you know, the bit rate on audio coming off of a Blu-ray disc, for example, is about 25 megabits per second. When you are streaming a movie off the internet, 512K. So it's only like a 45 times difference at that point in time. Keep that in mind. We want to make sure that all of that material gets to you. And then, of course, it will produce high dynamic range content. This is going to be one of the greatest developments in delivery of movies, both in the theater and in the home. The challenge they've always faced is the dynamic range, which is from the blackest black to the brightest white. That's what the dynamic range is. Currently in Hollywood, they're mastering at about 100 nits. That's how they measure it. About 100 nits from the black to the white. High dynamic range will expand that 10 times. You'll have 1,000 nit variance between blackest black and whitest white. What does that mean? It means you're going to see details in shadows you've never seen before. You're going to be in situations where it's extremely bright, but it's not going to blow out the entire rest of the picture and make it unwatchable. That is all HDR. Exciting thing about HDR is this: 4K is wonderful, and the bigger the screen, the more important it becomes. You get 10 feet and above, 4K is almost essential. You can notice HDR content on a 24-inch monitor on your computer. That's how powerful it is. We have a demonstration of it back here afterward if you'd like to see. Technicolor was kind enough to provide us with some HDR content so we could show it to you. And then also Sony, on the far side of their booth, has got the two running side by side, so you can see standard dynamic range and high dynamic range. Highly recommend you take a look at that. But the Strato will produce all of that. That being the case, we move on to the servers. Now, servers are storage devices, and we make big ones. They're out here to store the movies. They're out here to serve those movies out to the players that are on the network, multiple zones, multiple films at the same time. They provide a great deal of the computing and caching services which are necessary. It's really a task-specific computer with big hard drives in it that do a lot of number crunching so that we can deliver that fidelity out to the devices. Also, it enhances the performance of the Strato and the Alto movie players. It also enables systems with larger player configurations, more zones, more streams at the same time. Currently, one of these servers will provide 7 simultaneous streams in full 4K, or 15 streams in Blu-ray quality. Now, that doesn't mean you can't design a system that has 25 or 30 zones. That's fine. We found that when people do that, when they create a system that has multiple zones like that, rarely are more than 5 zones used at a time. Just doesn't happen to be the case. Not everybody runs to their room and turns on a 4K movie. It just doesn't happen. In reality, a system of this size, you can put 25 or 30 zones out there without even having to worry about any limitations. We do these in 12 and 24 terabyte